Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome along to our latest episode of the RTÉ GAA Podcast. We're going to chat football with Eamonn Fitzmaurice and Lee Keegan very shortly, but joining myself and Rory to chat through all the hurling is Shane McGrath, a happy man after watching Tip get through by the skin of their teeth yesterday. But also you were watching Limerick Cork. What a cracker. Like, it just came across on TV, Shane, like it was an unbelievable occasion. What was it like being there?
Yeah, it was unbelievable, Jackie. It was. Like, as I say, it was as close to a Munster final, I suppose, if you could get, as regard the crowd that was there. The pitch was absolutely in immaculate condition. Just the atmosphere that was there. There was people. I was there early because I wasn't sure what the traffic was going to be like and everything around the Gaelic grounds. I was there maybe around the 1:30 mark. Now, that's early for a 4 p.m. game. That's not a Munster final or Ireland final, as you both know. But there was people going into the terrace at 1:30. Like, they were just going in to get the best vantage point. I don't think there was a spot to be got around the place. I couldn't see how you're going to fit much more in. But it had everything, and then you're hoping for this game that's going to live up to it, and we got that and more. It was brilliant now to be there. Obviously, I'd love to be in Thurles to watch Tip, but maybe in hindsight, it is well off I wasn't, because what happened. But look, it was unbelievable, Jackie. Like, I suppose, look, if I could sum it up, you both know Marty very well, Marty Morrissey. I was on co-coms with Marty yesterday, and to tell you the intensity that was on the pitch, I actually thought Marty was going to drop down beside me from exhaustion, just commentating on the game. And me the same, like, you know, just the hits that were going in. There was a phase of play, particularly in the first half. The ball was in play for maybe a minute and 20 seconds, which mightn't seem like a lot, but like the average time the ball is in play would be around the 30-second mark. And just the hits were going in, the mistakes that were making. And lads, if I could sum it up, right, the best thing about yesterday for me with the Limerick and Cork game, right, and this might sound ridiculous, was all the mistakes that were made. The mistakes that were made helped create the excitement. It also helped show the human side of these lads. I think we put them up so high, lads, you know, inter-county players, hurling football, camogie, ladies football, that when they do make a mistake, we're like nearly taken aback. But the mistakes that were made yesterday by, you know, Limerick lads and Cork lads, it showed, first of all, for me, the pressure that was on everybody there yesterday. First big knockout game of the year. And secondly, it just showed the human side of them too. That, you know, everybody makes mistakes. We'll all make mistakes today in our jobs, lads. But the mistakes actually made the game yesterday. It made the excitement, and lads recovered from mistakes. It had everything. I'm sure we'll talk about the game. But for me, I suppose what it comes down to, Rory, with your own team is they're in a good place. It will get better. Will lads walk away or not? I'm not too sure. But it's just the goals, Rory. Like, it's just, I just kept little ticks on it. I'd Limerick down for 7 goal chances yesterday, and they took 3 of them. And I suppose that's I suppose maybe why maybe, Rory, you're not going on in the Munster Championship. That's maybe one of the reasons. There was some controversial decisions, Jackie. I suppose looking back, if I'm being honest, in real time, looking on from the co-coms box where we were up in the Mackey stand, we probably felt maybe it was the right calls were made. We thought Damien Cahallan actually picked the ball off the ground, but clearly he didn't. We actually thought Aaron Gillan was being fouled for the penalty, but looking back, he actually had Sean O'Donoghue's hurley held and pulled it into him. Did it a couple of times in the match. There was a free given against him in the first half for doing it. So look, all them decisions, you know, it's fine margins. And when it comes down to is that Cork lost 2 games, and they lost 2 games by 1 point each. And I suppose that's where we're at in the Munster Championship.
Do you know the funny thing is, Rory, if you look at Cork, right, they lost 2 games by a point, as Shane says, 1 in Ennis, 1 in Limerick, both away from home to the 2 teams who are going to contest the Munster final. Potentially could be in an All-Ireland final.
Big time, potentially.
Yeah, so like, I do still think from a Cork point of view, yes, it's incredibly disappointing that they're gone out, but actually those fine margins that Shane talks about, they're not that far away. I think there'll be a lot of people who do feel optimistic this morning in spite of being out in May.
Jackie, it's Cork's first time not getting out of the round robin since the round robin came in 2018. But I would be much more encouraged from what I saw from Cork this year when Cork didn't get out of the round robin than what I saw last year when Cork did. I thought there was an element of lethargy in their play last year at times. They were very, very disappointing on the very first day against Limerick at home in front of a big crowd, got really beaten out the gate. Lost to Clare I thought Clare were quite comfortable, and then turned their season against Waterford and beat Tip, who were kind of at a low ebb. And then obviously left the game. I was very frustrated with the performance against Galway in last year's quarter final, because I felt like I don't know, there was just something missing. What I've seen this year is a totally rejuvenated sense of sense of purpose. I think Pat Ryan has them going in the right direction. I think, look, there'll be no complaints. Ultimately, they were beaten by the better team yesterday. They lost 2 matches by a single point. It is cruel, but they had 4 games, 4 high-quality championship matches. They only won 1 of those against a Waterford team that didn't really fire. So I think ultimately can have no complaints. It is a shame you're not going to get to see them for the rest of the summer, but they didn't really do enough over the course of the 4 games to warrant progress. And I think all you can do really at this stage is say, well done, good luck to Limerick, and just how immense they were. They were incredible, by the way. And I thought William O'Donoghue, even though I did think it was a little bit of a throw for that goal that Cathal O'Neill scored, because I don't actually know what the rule is there anymore. I don't think anybody does. But what a display William O'Donoghue gave, Jackie. I mean, he was incredible. I know they gave man of the match to Dermot Burns. William O'Donoghue was mine.
Yeah. Look, I thought the All-Ireland champion stood up yesterday, Shane, and I even just listened to Dermot Burns talking after the game about outside noise and they weren't listening and all that kind of stuff. They clearly were. You know, you can tell that the beast has been sufficiently poked now. John Kiley has touched on it. The players have touched on it. And they stood up yesterday. They got a performance. Their backs were against the wall. I guess my question now is, what does it mean for them now? How much of a boost is it now for them to be in a Munster final that they probably didn't think they were going to be in, and now potentially going through the front door on road to another All-Ireland?
And they go for 5 in a row in Munster as well, Jackie. It's incredible. Sorry, Shane.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's like, yeah. And I suppose I would have been like, Jackie, I put my hands up and I say, I actually thought Cork were going to do it yesterday. I thought what it was going to take out of Limerick for what they had to do in the tip match. I thought, look, 10 to go again, always asking the same really 15 or 16 guys to do it week in, week out. And it was just a performance for the ages for them, I suppose. Look, how could I sum it up, Jackie? If you ever watch at the end of a match, and you see management teams, and some victories mean more than others, right? And in the course of great teams, and it could be a small victory in Premier League stuff. It could be getting an away win on a Tuesday night, 1-0 or something like that, when you know your back's against the wall and you have to do it. Yesterday at full time, Jackie, I barring All-Ireland final win, I've never seen John Kiley and Paul Kinnock embrace each other like they did yesterday. Normally now these guys, and look, they'll go down as what they've done for Limerick hurling and what they have done in their personal managerial and coaching careers will be looked on, and people will ask them when they step away from it, say, what did you actually do because of what they have done? But they embraced yesterday, because they knew this was a massive day for them and for the group. And Dermot Burns' interview, I totally understand the emotion where he's coming from. I suppose, while they say they're not listening to the outside night, it's only human. They have families, they have friends, they go down to the shop, they have to go here and there, and someone's going to say something to them. So they had a big point to prove, I suppose, to themselves as well yesterday, that, look, we're not done here. And I think that was the emotion we got yesterday when Kiley and Kinnock embraced at the end of the game. They were like, look, we did it. We're still there. You know what? It could be the launch pad for their season now, Jackie. They'll go in now. They'll play Clare in the Munster final. For me, right? And I'll never doubt Limerick again anyway. No way. I can't. And lots of Limerick people have said it to me. But look, I suppose I'm being honest. I thought Cork were going to do it. They'll go into a Munster final now. And I suppose I'd put it like this. There's wanting and needing something, right? And again, maybe putting up to be shot down here. I think Limerick will really want to win the Munster final and do 5 in a row. But I think Clare need to win this Munster final. I think the hurling county, the hurling people in Clare, the county of Clare, and everybody that supports Clare, they need a victory. They need this Munster final. And I think that's what's going to come down to. And if they don't get it, again, it could be demoralising for the group that, let's say, Jackie, they give another performance for the ages like they did last year, even more so, and they come away without that Munster final, because that's what they're looking at. So Limerick will go into it 2 weeks off. they'll regroup. The buzz around the place will be unbelievable. Brian Lohan will be, did they think they were going to play a Tip? I'd say they probably did, lads. Let's be totally honest. I'd say they probably were.
Everybody did.
I'd say they were lining up to say, look, it's going to be ourselves and Tip must final. There was a lot of BS as well during the week, lads, about the match. Tip and Clare will be on blowing Park Creve and all this. And geez, when there was matches to be played, it's just, I hate hearing those conversations going on. So, like, Limerick and Clare Munster final most likely will be Thurles, I presume. It'll be an unbelievable atmosphere. But Clare really have to get this win now. And, performances around the field, Jackie, if I could touch on it quickly from Limerick, heroes everywhere, right? Dan Morrissey was unbelievable yesterday. I suppose his performance got lost in the 1-4 Dermot Byrne scored. William O'Donoghue was immense. Darragh O'Donovan had his best game of the year yesterday. 3 points to play. He destroyed Luke Meade. He did. No, Luke tried hard, but he just wasn't in it. Garrod Hegarty had a brilliant second half. He's coming back into form. Tom Morrissey, 2 points from play, usually 3 or 4. But the amount of ball he's getting on. And Jeremy Mellerick gave him the run of the field yesterday in the first half. I couldn't believe when I was watching it. And then inside, their full forward line again. Peter Casey gets his points to play, but the two boys inside again. And between them, they're getting 1-8 and 1-6 of that from play. They really stood up yesterday. So where I suppose there was a bit of confusion was maybe from around minute 55, 56, where their backs had to change. Mike Casey, he came off because he was on a yellow and a tick. Declan Hannon came off, and there was a little bit of confusion there as in who was going where. And I think Hoggy got the goal in that time, and Cork actually got 4 scores in a row in that period. They got 1-3. Thought they were going to push on again. Last 6 scores of the game, lads, go like this: Limerick, Cork, Limerick, Cork, Limerick, Cork. They were the last 6 scores. The game had it all, lads. The game had it all. But look, doubt Limerick. No, I'll never doubt them again anyway.
Yeah, listen, you won't be the other one. Trust me.
Jackie, there's an incredible documentary to be made on this year's Munster Hurling Championship.
Yeah, they'd never let you in. I'm telling you, they'd all be afraid.
But even just to recap, I mean, I know how many classics we're after getting. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's been class. I'm not sure if Tip Waterford could be described as a classic, Rory, because to be honest, that's the result that surprised people over the weekend. Like, you talk about some of the others, whatever, great win for Wexford and everything, but I don't know. I think this one, Waterford, they stunned a lot of people yesterday.
Big time, and they have definitely resuscitated Davies' managerial career, because I'd imagine it was probably hanging by a thread had they gone through if it was a complete and utter whitewash. So I think look, there was a lot of talk in advance with Billy Nolan playing, and that this was some sort of, managerial masterstroke. I think Billy Nolan is an outfield player anyway, and it's not exactly something new. No, it did obviously throw a tip. I think there was 3 key injuries to Tipperary players in advance of the game. Did Cathal Barrett not play? No, obviously missing Jake Morris. Jake Morris didn't start either, did he, Shane?
No.
And then you're missing Jason Ford. So would the Tipperary sort of expect it to happen for them? Were they a little bit off insofar as they know they were qualified regardless of what had happened? Or was that? No, it could have actually turned up that
another point they were gone.
They were gone.
I wasn't well inside the Gaelic ground.
Yeah, so it'll just give you an indication of how close it got for them to a certain extent. And I suppose it just goes to show, you take your foot off the pedal even a small bit. If you're not at the pitch of it, you might get caught. I think it's a big fill-up for Waterford. I think it'll definitely give them something to sustain themselves now as they head back to the clubs, because it was a very, very doomsday scenario surrounding the entire Waterford hurling scene. I think that was a massive, massive boost. And I think by and large, I didn't really see much of this, only in the highlights, but did we see a traditional restoration of players into some of the more natural positions that they would ordinarily play, and give Tipperary huge problems? And maybe that's a key learning for Waterford as they head into 2024.
What about Tip, Shane? How derailing is something like that for them in terms of going forward?
I don't know, Jackie. So my brother was at the game, and I tell you what, people of Tipperary, I'm never so happy to see Garrod Hegarty catch a ball as I was yesterday. Like it was some play. And you know what? It probably was the difference. Like if he doesn't get that possession, that primary possession, bangs it over the bar, you never know. Like the ball could break and it's a free. And sure, look, and I'd say, Jackie, I'll be totally honest now. I'd say the cheer that would have been done from the Gaelic grounds from Limerick and Cork, knowing that they drew and they both knocked Tip out, would have been phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
Whatever about it was the final. But anyway, so look,
there'll be some party in the Gaelic grounds then.
Stop, like I was just expecting this 40,000. Oh no, we drew. oh yes, we just knocked Tip out. Like, unreal. But talked to my brother at the game, Jackie, like, and a good chat with him yesterday. He said, like, he just said, look, it was just a disaster. It was like men versus boys yesterday. Like, in fairness to Liam Cahill, he came straight out and he says, we are not using tiredness as an excuse here, because you can't. When you see what Limerick did, they were playing the same game as we were. Cork and Kerry were playing the same game as Tip were as well last week. High intensity game, hits, you know, full tilt stuff. So that's not an excuse. I think, right, and I could be totally wrong here. I just think the mentality of yesterday, maybe, right? And again, we go to the human side of these players. The mentality for Tip yesterday was, unless we're getting absolutely hammered, right, and it's a draw inside the Gaelic grounds, we're actually still going to be in the championship. Whereas in the Gaelic grounds, it was absolute do or die. If you don't win, you're gone, and that's it, basically, right? So maybe that mentality does kind of seep in a small bit, like, and maybe that bit of, to put it mildly, that bit of kind of mental toughness isn't there, right? That you know, if you compare the two performances, even the Cork performance for Tip and the Limerick performance, where they knew we have to get something out of this. Like yesterday, I suppose maybe, Jackie, the feeling around was that they didn't absolutely have to get something out of it, and maybe that seeped into the performance. You know, like without the boys, without Cathal Barrett, without Jake Morris, without Jace Ford, again, they're excuses. We can't keep using them. Yeah, it's great now that the 3 weeks is there to try and get these boys back if possible at all. But I mean, like, it was a total domination by Waterford. Like, tactically, even I found it very interesting, even watching it back last night. Their puck-outs, like, they pushed everybody up to the 45. And that way, like, if you're going short, then if Waterford were going short yesterday, lads, they were going short, but they were getting the ball on the 45-yard line. So even if Caleb Lyons or someone powered on, he was nearly at midfield by the time he got his head up to look. And that's a high risk, high reward. Like, as in, high risk, if they get turned over, it's 50 yards of space and it's going to be a goal. See what happened against Clare even when they got turned over, right? But the high reward from yesterday was Caleb Lyons was getting on ball, restore Jack Fagan back up to the forwards. You know, I Jack Fagan down as he had 3 points from play scored inside 11 minutes yesterday, right? It was at 12 minutes gone, Waterford had 11 shots at the goal, okay? And Tip had no shot from play at the goal at that stage. Waterford just dominated every sector of the field yesterday. Billy Nolan does do a lot of the hurling out the field with his club and everything. He was very, very comfortable on the ball. He got his head up. And even the way they deployed him, lads, I thought was very interesting. They put him to one side of the pitch. So when Reece Shelley looked up, he had to go the other side. And who was on the other side was Caleb Lyons. And he was dominating that sector. So they got their tactics spot on. You know, I suppose, as Joe said last night, Jack, if they lose, Davy's the worst in the world. Yeah. In fairness to him, he's taking chances. It worked yesterday. Tipper just got destroyed yesterday. But look, lads, it's a great stick now for Liam Cahill to beat them with. And I tell you, if anyone is going to beat them with it, it will be Liam Cahill. Yeah. They will get back in. I'm sure they'll probably even have a chat tonight to say, right, lads, where are we going from here? I was part of a group, lads, even in 2010, like, that we got absolutely annihilated down in Park of Creed. We had a big, you know, honest discussion about what went wrong. We took ownership, the management took ownership, and we got a good run then in the qualifiers, we call it. And I think that's what Tip have to do now. They have to just, you know, look now and say, what went wrong? We've Offaly now in a few weeks. Is it a game they're going to expect to win? Of course it is, lads. There's no point in saying that else. Both teams are going to expect to beat Carlow and Offaly. That's just the way it is. That's the truth of it. So it'll be a bit of a soul searching now, I suppose, for the next couple of days. But look, I think the Tip lads will get back on the horse, get the boys back, and I think they'll be ready to rock in a few weeks' time. Because look, it's all knockout hurling now. That's what you want, Jackie.
Yeah, well, looking forward to that. What about Leinster then, Rory? Because I don't know if even after this weekend we know much about Kilkenny and Galway. It still feels to me like we're scratching the surface again of what they are. It's hard to get a judge on them even now with Galway again yesterday.
They played really well in the second half, but I think you have to give a huge amount. Like, I watched all of this. I was absolutely fascinated by Dublin's display in the first half. I did feel that they'd struggled to sustain the intensity that they brought in that first half, and that Galway would come back into it now to turn a 12-point lead around. I mean, leads in hurling nowadays, they're just so fickle. And like it was a brilliant display. It was a really, really good tactical this performance from Micheál Donoghue. I think coaching wise, I never saw a Dublin team whose first touch was as crisp, whose ball striking was as good, who played for each other with a really good spirit. I thought they were top class right all the way through that first half, but it was going to be difficult for them to sustain. They are a developing team. Galway came back into it, and I think Galway probably got, I think a draw was definitely a fair result in the end with two teams dominant in either half. But there's huge question marks on Galway. One thing that struck me about Henry was every time the camera panned to him when they were 11, 10, 11, 12 points down, Henry's not one for panic. And they didn't. And they just, like you did feel at some stage they were going to get a purple patch. And once I saw Dai Burke scoring goals, I'm saying to myself, well, God, we're definitely getting something out of this match anyway. And it's very, very difficult to make a call on them, especially seeing as what happened Kilkenny as well below in Wexford Park. I mean, Wexford just have this knack of turning Kilkenny over at this stage. It's incredible. But I think we will get a better reflection of either team in the Leinster final, given the prize that's on offer with safe passage through to an All-Ireland semi. And trust me, I think the losers do not want, if you lose a provincial final now and you run into a Munster team, given how battle-hardened they are, that's a much more difficult route. So that makes that carrot of Leinster Championship much more appetizing for both teams. And I think we will get a better appraisal at that stage.
Yeah. Look, I think we just hold our judgment on both of those teams until we see them in the provincial final, Shane, because Rory is right. I think the prize at stake for them, because to me, it seems there's been no major prize at stake for them, right, at all through this championship so far, through the round robin stages, because they both knew they were probably going to be in the provincial championship final, completely different to Munster. So I think they're probably right to have held off, and maybe we just wait and see with them.
Yeah, I think we have to see the real Galway, the real Kilkenny now in the Leinster final, because I said the prize that's on offer. Again, I go back to Limerick and Clare about the wanting and needing. I think Galway need to win this. I think, for Henry and his troops, I think they need to win this Leinster title. There needs to be a cup on the table with the group that's there, and especially with Henry going in and getting involved, because look, the high expectations, the high standards he has himself personally as a player, what he's done as a manager with his club, and he'll want to bring that in. And he's a notorious winner, so he'll want silverware. Like, he needs something to kind of back up the work that they're doing up there. And so I think that's where Galway just really, really have to go at this. Kilkenny, I suppose, even we seen it yesterday, I suppose it's a different mentality. I mean, they didn't have to get at now yesterday. Was that in Galway's mindset as well, Jackie? They didn't really have to get at now of it. I think maybe it is a small bit, and maybe we'll see two different groups, two teams really going at it. Like, because if we don't see it in the Leinster final, as Rory said, whoever loses that Leinster final, and they're going to have to go through an extra week's hurling, really, really tough hurling, really tough game, whoever they're going to be playing against. Like, whereas if you can just tick that box, relax, sit down in the couch and get ready for an All-Ireland semi-final, and let's be honest, Leinster, they're coming into it, they will come into it a bit fresher. So if you can even go into an All-Ireland semi-final even a little bit more fresher, what an advantage it is to whoever you're going to be playing who have played the week before. So that's massive as well. I think the way Dublin finished is probably maybe a bit of a worry for Micheál Donoghue. That's, while the performance is brilliant, Rory, I agree with you. From the 55th minute to the finish, Galway outscored Dublin with 9 points to 3 I have down here. So they'll probably look at that and say, look, while it was brilliant for 56 minutes, we need to really finish out these games, lads. We really need to do it, because there was a lot of really positive things. And, it wasn't a draw until minute 69 when it was Éanna Murphy nailed that long range free. Like, so look, lots of positives for Dublin. They'll go into the Carlow game. They'll take the good things out of it and know that they can perform as well. So, but as you said, winner of the Leinster final, massive advantage for the All-Ireland Championship afterwards.
Yeah, big time. What about Wexford then, Rory? Because that's a performance. If you talk about Waterford pulling off a performance like that, I'm not sure too many people thought Wexford might turn Kilkenny over yesterday either.
Nobody would have given him a chance, Jackie. I mean, in fairness, looking at their form and looking at the way Kilkenny have, and obviously Kilkenny would have had it in the back of their minds that we got turned over by him in Nolan Park 12 months before. So you would have imagined there would have been plenty of motivation at stake as well from a Kilkenny perspective. But what a game. What a game of hurling. I mean, has anybody found Pat Mulcahy from RTÉ? Has anyone found Pat yet?
I had to listen back to it. Oh my God.
He handed back to Des at one stage, and Des's response was, "You go and lie down, no Pat." It's like, 9-goal thriller, had absolutely everything. I think we should have probably guessed. I think Tom Dempsey wrote a brilliant piece on social media in the week. It was like a battle cry, you know, to sort of a clarion call to get people to go down to Wexford Park and support the team. And for them to win that, I mean, for them to preserve and rightly preserve their status, I think is absolutely massive. And like Wexford are such a proud hurling county. I know all these sort of claptrap platitudes don't really mean a huge amount, but it is still a huge victory for them. And it was a huge victory for Dara Egan. You saw what it meant to him afterwards, because obviously there was the amount of criticism that they took during the week about lacking stomach and lacking bottle and all these types of things. It was the one thing, Jackie, and I do think it's an important point. There was so much happened over the course of the weekend between Carlow Offaly, in the Joe McDonagh, yesterday in the Leinster Hurling Championship, Munster Hurling Championship. I mean, like, is this really the calendar that people want? It's just a question. Look, we're not going to get into it now, but I have no clue how this is doing anything for a game's promotion, because there was so many different things to talk about and so many talking points. There's no way you could cover it all. There's no television station, there's no radio, there's no newspapers. It's bonkers. Like, it is beyond bonkers. But anyway, look, it's brilliant for Wexford. Delighted for them. Delighted for... because there's some really great, genuine Wexford hurling people, and it's just fantastic that their Liam McCarthy Cup status is preserved in 24.
Yeah, I'm glad for them. Can we finish off on that point then, Shane? Because I think Rory is right. And I said this to Donald and Joe last night when we were scrambling around trying to squeeze all of the hurling in on the Sunday game. It is impossible to feel like you're doing all of them justice, because there was just so many games this weekend. 2 Leinster matches at the same time, 2 Munster matches at the same time, with something on the line in all of them. An unbelievable Joe McDonagh Cup final for the 2nd year in a row. Just felt to me like, I don't know, do we need to have all of these games on at A, the same time, and B, on the same weekend again in May?
Yeah, it's hard going. I suppose as someone who's still playing with the club, I just think like that we're not asking for him to be pushed back too much. Like, I mean, but I honestly do believe that maybe we should be only playing round 2 right now, or maybe round 3. You know, I think it could easily get pushed back a few weeks, and people will be saying, yeah, but what about the club player and all this? And as I said before, lads, Limerick and Kilkenny were in the All-Ireland final last year. Both their county finals got played in October. No problem at all. I think it could get pushed back. I think we are trying to squeeze too much in. Look at all the drama. Like, it was great to see the Joe Mac final on telly and everything, and everyone got to see it, and everyone got to, like, say, if you didn't know who Paddy Boland was there hurling for Carlow, now there's young lads around the country snapping ball at training tonight or in the schoolyard today saying, "Oh, Paddy Boland, what a catch!" And that's brilliant. Like, you know, that's what it does for Carlow hurling, because everyone knows who Aaron Gillan is, but now everyone knows who Paddy Boland is after the weekend from what he was doing, along with all his teammates. You know, Kavanagh's and all these players, just top class performance ever. But I agree with Jackie. I think there was so much thrillers there at the weekend. It'd be like trying to go to the cinema and trying to watch 4 of the best films maybe of the year, and trying to watch them all between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock that evening, and you're just so wrecked. Whereas if you could space them out over a few days, and look, we can't, like in the Premier League, we can have these thrillers on a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, because you know what, lads, there's none of them lads getting up to go to work the following day. Their job is that. If you know, so we are condensing it, we are getting it all in. For me, I agree. I think not push it back too much, but definitely we could spread this out. We could push it back 2-3 weeks. We'd still be getting it all in, lads. We'd still have a fantastic club championship. And for people are saying the club, and I'm a club player still, you'll still get it in, lads. You'll still get it in. You'll get it in, no problem. And at the end of the day, it's only 2 teams get to the All-Ireland final.
Yep.
You know, the other 30 counties can work away and get their club, rather than looking on and waiting for this thing to finish. So, and look where we were last year with the 2 teams got to the final. They got their county finals done in October. So look, unbelievable stuff. Lads, we'd actually be here till 1 o'clock to try and talk about it all. But I think, as you said, Rory, there's a documentary somewhere. But I don't think you're having a hope of getting in, because I tell you what, lads, we couldn't even get the Limerick team hardly 2 minutes before the throw-in yesterday. So best of luck trying to get 4 or 5 Netflix cameras inside into the dressing room.
Stop.
So look, the hurling gift keeps giving, and well done the Leinster Championship. Stepped up over the weekend, provided the excitement. It was a draw. I call excitement.
They finally got there, Shane.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to the rest of it now.
Oh, lads, come here. We'll leave it there, Shane. Thanks a million. Go and get a rest after all that brilliant weekend. Thanks a million for being with us.
Okay, guys, thanks a million.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Right, let's chat football now then. Eamonn Fitzmaurice and Lee Keegan are with us. And look, let's start with that one yesterday in Croker. Lee, you were there to watch Dublin Roscommon. A lot of talk about the Dubs, maybe that they're not at full tilt. You've been up close and personal with them more than most over the years. What you make of them yesterday in the current breed and where they're going?
It's a shame they wouldn't play like they did yesterday when we did. We would have had more games with a W beside it than a loss. But I suppose there was a lot of discussion around where Dublin are at the moment. I was kind of highlighting their inconsistencies throughout the year, trying to get back-to-back performances. And I know we've alluded to the challenges of not playing Division 1 teams, and it's a result of them getting relegated last year, obviously. So and they're back up in the league. But yesterday was a strange one. Particularly the first half, they're very passive. And you take the last score in particular, where Kieran Murtagh scored just before half-time. They had the ball for nearly 5.5, 6 minutes. I've never associated a Dublin team not getting contact like that before, which was very strange. I mean, in their pomp, they were hands-on, aggressive, in your face. And I know one year you barely had 1 second on the ball, never mind 6 minutes on the ball. So I found that quite a strange moment in the game, particularly. But on the flip side, I think you have to give Roscommon huge credit. They came with a high energy levels. I think we can all look at Dublin and say, right, inconsistent, poor, and we can allude that, and particularly the likes of Brian Fenton, Kilkenny, Paul Mannion, standard bearers of Dublin, but very ineffective yesterday, very quiet. And you take Brian Fenton's shot towards the end of the game when the game was in the middle pot, dropped it short. So yeah, that's big areas Dublin need to work on. But from a Roscommon perspective, they're going well all year. Yesterday they brought it. The game plan we associate them with, but they're very comfortable in the first half. Probably ran out a bit of puff in the second half, and then kind of finished strongly. But give a huge credit, Kieran Murtagh, my man of the match yesterday. I thought
too late.
Thought he was fantastic. Kieran Murtagh really good, and I just think they got their game plan really well. Looked really comfortable in the first half, and huge credit. Deserved the draw. Could have had the win late on, but I think a draw was a fair result in the context of the game.
Yeah, you wonder though, Eamonn, how many times do you catch the Dubs off colour? And if you don't take the opportunity, you feel like maybe it is a bit of a miss for Davy Burke.
Yeah, I would give Roscommon huge credit yesterday, Jackie, to be honest. Look, I think in fairness to them, throughout the season since Davy Burke has come in, he's a very good backroom team himself, obviously. He's proving himself to be an able operator over and over again. He has Mark McHugh involved, Eddie Lohan, Jerry McGowan, who would have done a good bit of work with Clare before, is involved as well. So they have a good bit of experience in the backroom team. And look, the more and more we see of it, the teams that have, especially the good teams that did well in the league, that have the couple of weeks to eye up an opposition, they're coming with a very specific plan that they've practiced and rehearsed, and they're really ready to go. The Dubs would have had their eyes very much on the Leinster final, whereas since the draw has been made, Davy Burke has been getting ready for this game and getting Roscommon ready for this game. So I would give them a huge amount of credit. They came with a very specific game plan. In many ways, they out-Dublined Dublin. They took it to a new level. That score that Lee mentioned there before half-time, the Dubs, oftentimes you could have a good 25, 30 minutes against them, and they'd put on a bit of a power play coming up to half-time, and they'd bridged nearly an awful lot of the good work that you had done in the first half, whereas Roscommon just didn't allow them to do that yesterday, and they frustrated the life out of them, frustrated the hill. So you have to give them an awful lot of credit. It reminded me in ways of almost a kind of a Jose Mourinho approach to a game of football, that a lot of it was based on frustrating Dublin with the way that they played, and they deserve huge credit for that, and with no mean skill and no mean athleticism. And again, another feature of Roscommon throughout the season that I've been very impressed with is there's clearly a serious spirit within the group, because that game at the end when the Dubs went ahead, we've seen that 100 times where Dublin come back, they somehow get it done, whereas Roscommon wouldn't just go away, and they could have even won it with that last shot at the end from Conor Cox. So I give them great credit. With the Dubs, look, as Lee said, we've been looking at them all season. There is that inconsistency there with them. I think looking at them, there's two things that's kind of emerging. Number one, they seem to play to the level of the opposition. And the other thing that I think is becoming a pattern for them is they've won so much and they've seen it all. They almost need an angle. So if we look at their big performances over the last 12 months, Kerry always bring it out of them anyway. The sight of the Kerry jersey, the All-Ireland semi-final last year, they had a huge performance. This season, their big performances, they played very well in the Leinster final against Louth. That was after Louth had put it up to them in the league. It's almost like that they need some kind of an angle. If they were to meet Roscommon again, I think we'd see a different Dublin. Yeah. So I don't think it's a motivation thing. I just think that they need something to get the juices flowing. And yesterday it was almost like they needed Roscommon's first half to get them going a bit in the second half. But yeah, they've work to do. They're kind of a bit of an imponderable at the moment.
That's kind of the best word to describe them, Lee, because I still think there's people still saying they could win in All Ireland. You know, to me at the moment, I think they're so far off that, but yet it wouldn't surprise me. You know what I mean?
I actually am one of them that still thinks they could win it. To be honest, and like to Eamonn's point, I fully agree. And you just look at the, I suppose, comparison between them and Roscommon. Roscommon have played all Division 1 teams up to now, where Dublin have only played one. So there is that kind of thing as well, where maybe there is the boredom factor, where they're not getting that, as Eamon said, the juice flowing. It might take to a quarter-final where they could get potentially a Kerry to get that going. And that's just the group of players they have. And I even look at their stats from yesterday as well, bits like that. Like a lot of wides, copped up silly possession first half. They'd only 3 starting forwards that scored yesterday. Cormac Costello hit 7 points, so that's the majority. That's nearly 7% of their chances scored. So even from that perspective, they're not getting a return from some of their best players. Paul Mannion was out of the game completely. Brian Howard was picking Kerlin. He can see a 2 points on him earlier. So guys that we associate been they're big players. And then I travelled the whole way to Dublin to not see Jack McCaffrey starting. I was in tears when I got to Croke Park and I heard he wasn't talking. So, but again, it's the reliance going back to the Mannions, the McCaffreys, the Cluxons. You know, the guys that we're meant to be associated with, like the Fentons, Kilkennys. These guys are not getting the best of themselves at the moment, and it could take a test like a Galway or a Kerry or a Mayo to really see where Dublin are at. But it could be too late if they're going to be formed in the manner they are. So it's going to be interesting to see. Listen, I think the group stage is not going to tell us much more. Sligo there, and no disrespect to them, I just think Dublin will get over them and look to finish top, and then we'll see really from the quarterfinal what Dublin we're really going to see progressing into the championship.
But is there a chance that they may not finish top now? Does that draw maybe open up that group a little bit, Eamon, would you think?
It does. It'll probably come down to
score difference.
Difference, yeah, if form continues. So and the way Roscommon are going, you wouldn't back against them, you know, finishing on top and scoring difference.
At the moment, it's the most finely balanced group I've ever seen. It's all literally bang on. Like
they all have a point each,
yeah. Yeah. Well, look, what about some of the other groups then? Eamon, you were watching Derry Monaghan, I know, like a lot of talk. Shane McGuigan, again, an unbelievable performance for Derry. But again, the provincial championship looked like it took a bit out of them. Again, they just, to me, they didn't look like the Derry that we've seen earlier in the year for some reason.
Yeah, look, the provincial championships there. We've been saying for a long time they're in life support. They're probably in a coma now when you start to look at like we'd say there was 8 teams obviously in the provincial finals. There was 2 wins out of that since the All-Ireland series have started. Galway and Armagh are the only 2 teams that have won. Louth, Clare, Kerry were all beaten. The Dubs, Sligo and Derry all drew in their first game. So you know, it's going to be probably another nail in the provincial championships. It was mentioned at the start of this year, would teams kind of use the provincial championships as a period possibly to rest some of their key players? Teams didn't this year, but looking at the way the thing is playing out, they may next year, because we are all in that kind of learning space at the moment. So Derry definitely did look like that it had taken a bit out of them. But I would look at Monaghan and I would give them massive credit. Yeah. And that started straight away after that game in Omagh, because Vinnie Corey was interviewed straight after the game. And I remember looking at him and I said, yeah, that's a very mature attitude. He said straight away, look, we've no arguments. Derry were outstanding tonight. We've to go away and we've to learn from that. There was no emotion. There was no, getting carried away with it. He was just very matter of fact. We've to learn from that. And they clearly did. Their personnel changes, starting Gary Mohan, Shane Carey, Ryan McInnesby, all worked. McInnesby in particular, I thought was all of them were very good. They learned sitting back inside the 45 suits Derry. They engaged them much further out. They were more physical. They weren't getting beaten in the 1-on-1s the same way as they were the first day out. Their shooting from distance, they had clearly worked on, was excellent. They got some great scores. And I thought Rory Beggan's performance as well was outstanding. The two big frees that he kicked there, there was great fan footage going around yesterday of his 45 right out in the sideline on the right hand side. It was incredible. Just an incredible kick, and in such a finely balanced game. And then again, you have to give Derry massive credit at the end, and that high level experience they've built up over the last couple of seasons, where they came back and they got the draw and could have even stolen it in the end. So I give both teams a lot of credit, but very, very impressed with Monaghan and the way that they reacted to that defeat. But again, another team that had that window to focus on and to get ready for the All-Ireland series. And now they're in a great position. They're playing Clare at home next weekend. And you know, the way that they're going now, you'd fancy them. I saw Vinnie Corey saying afterwards that they had to look at those two games together. So expect the likes of Conor McManus, Darren Hughes, who was the third one, Lee, that was left out? Jack McCarn. The three of them will probably all start next weekend now, and they're going to be fresh. They're going to have a bit of a point to prove they'll feel themselves. So that spells danger for Clare. So I think Vinnie Corey and his management team really managed it very well, and they deserve a lot of credit for that result.
Eamon, do you think Monaghan will have a regret not taking the result? Because I thought they were excellent as well. I have to give Vinegar a huge, even to drop the likes of Conor McManus, one of his mainstay guys, Darren Hughes, Jack Carn, they're big calls, but I feel Monaghan might have a little bit of regret based on the performance of the weekend.
Probably, Lee, but the only thing is they could have lost it in the end.
Yeah.
It took them getting that great Carl O'Connell point, and they were away from home. They are playing the Ulster champions. So I think bridging the gap that they bridged, point was a good result, but at the same time, 100%, they probably should have won it with the way they played. But again, I would give massive credit to Derry, and they just, that high level experience they've built up over the last 12 to 18 months, I think stood to them there in the end.
Yeah, look, cracking game there. What about Louth Cork then, Rory, for your sins as a Cork football fan? You've been watching this team over the day. It does seem to me that they are the big winners from this weekend, because that was the one game of all of these that actually had real consequences for the winner of this one and for the loser.
Yeah, and I think the football championship and the All-Ireland series will really, really kick into gear this weekend coming. It's round 2, it's moving weekend. You are going to see a kind of a knockout element to a much more of a knockout element feel to the games themselves. Hurling, there's no hurling on, so they have the dance floor to themselves as well, which will give a big focus.
I'd be delighted with that.
Yeah.
We get married in the Cork Kerry game.
Even the Tailteann Cup. The only disappointment about Cork Kerry, really, I suppose, is the game is on at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon. Now, I know they have no choice in that because it's live at the Marquee. Is on down in the same area that night. It is a pity, given that it's going up against Manchester United in an FA Cup final, and it will affect the attendance, I would imagine. And the fact that, look, on a Saturday afternoon, there's a lot of club games do happen in both Cork and Kerry, but I still expect a big crowd over the weekend. Look, I think Eamon wrote a fantastic piece about them on Saturday in advance of it, in that they needed to win. He also mentioned about confidence and about how much a win would bring confidence. And you have to bear in mind, Jackie, they were 6 points up. Mm-hmm. They went from 6 points up to throwing away a wobbler of a goal, and all of a sudden find themselves a point down. Now, how many times in the past recent past and the distant past have we seen Cork teams absolutely fold in that scenario away from home. Big, obviously, home vocal support, hardly anybody from Cork there as usual. And they didn't. You know, they stuck to the task. They got a little bit of a return from a half-forward line that I suppose I would have been critical of in the past. I thought Rory Dean was absolutely outstanding. And to eke out that sort of a victory speaks a little bit to the character of the group. And I think, as Eamonn mentioned in his piece, confidence is a key thing with this Cork team. It's their first victory, I think, Eamonn, since the middle of March in league or championship, obviously. And I think, look, it gives them a platform now to, I suppose, go in and have a swing at the All-Ireland champions next week at home. And irregardless of what happens from here, barring a complete freak of nature result, should see them into knockout football irregardless. So I think it's been a good weekend from their point of view, and it was a really significant game across last weekend in football terms.
Yeah, and I think they'll take huge confidence from it, Eamonn, given the way that the league game went between the two counties. And as Rory said, they know now that they're safe. They're going through. They'll take enormous confidence from that.
Yeah, like Louth have to take 3 points now from Kerry and Mayo to get through, because Cork have them in the head-to-head. That if Louth did happen to beat Kerry or Mayo, which look is probably unlikely, but if that did happen, they still have to pick up a point somewhere else. So it was a huge win for Cork, and they're going to be looking this week now at what did Mayo do, and one of the things that Mayo did against Kerry and Killarney was that their strong running troubled Kerry, and that's Cork's DNA. That's their natural game, and they're going to be looking at that, and they're going to be licking their lips, and they're going to be saying it's a free shot for them, and they would love absolutely nothing more, and Rory would love nothing more than for and you too, Jackie, all of you. You're
Rory have you on the pod Monday morning, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what they don't want though? What they don't want though, Eamonn, is a hiding either, because if they go after them and they get that wrong, and suddenly they get a hiding off Kerry, that is a setback, even if they are going through.
It is, but I suppose the thing about it, Jackie, we don't know. None of us kind of know. We don't know where Kerry are at. We don't know where Cork are at. We can't trust Cork. That was a great win for them this week. It's something they can build on. I know so many of those Cork players. I know the qualities that Kevin Welch brings. I know a lot of the Cork management, the qualities that they bring. So for me, Cork should be doing way better. And I'm sure they feel that way themselves. So we don't know where they're at. We 100% don't know where Kerry at. You'd expect a huge reaction from Kerry if they can react, and I think that's the question that Kerry will have to answer next weekend. Have they that appetite, and have they that energy to react to that defeat? You know, the sight of a Cork jersey below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, a winning Cork team should get them going. But you know, as Rory said, it's really after this weekend. I think we'll know where teams are at in the context. We'll have that context after this weekend.
What do you think, Lee? Well, how do you see that in terms of Cork, you know, welcoming the All-Ireland champions into their backyard, coming off a win like that? I suppose put yourself in their shoes and how they might be feeling about this weekend.
I think it's a free shot. I mean, like, there's no reason why they can just go in, throw the shackles off and go at Kerry. I mean, if I were a Cork player going in against Kerry, would you fear what you seen against Mayo a couple of weeks ago? Absolutely not. And Kerry looked like a team, I said before, like a team that were not prepped for Mayo at all 2 weeks ago. They looked a team that were just kind of rocked up and were expecting Mayo just to play nice football. But Mayo, and I suppose that's the biggest question we always say, because we're Mayo at as well. I didn't know where they're at, injuries and playing challenge games. But they came full of energy, and they were a team that were prepped. They were well ready for Kerry, what they're going to bring, and they just got their matchups right. So from a Cork perspective, if they get their matchups and they just throw the shackles off and go at Kerry, there's nothing to be afraid of. The big question though is if Kerry come out a different beast and the side of a Cork jersey, will that rile them up? Then you could see a bit of a spark in them. And the likes of Sean O'Shea, very quiet the last day. Paddy was quiet. Tony Brosnan, these guys need a big performance now, and the side of a Cork jersey should ramp them up big time. But the likes of Brian Hurley, even you probably see him at the weekend, Rory. He's playing some fantastic football. Kicked 8 points again, looks really sharp, kind of reinvigorated after all his injury worries over the years, and a guy that's carrying the captaincy very well at the moment for Cork. So he knows what's on offer himself as well, and he seems to really enjoy his football. So listen, Cork have nothing to fear. I do expect a Kerry reaction. And the fact that Jack Connor will not be happy with that performance week, so I expect him to go out rampant.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Nice one in the park. I think there'll be a lot of people staying on after the marquee afterwards, Rory, and enjoying
I'll head up to the frames afterwards. I think the frames are on.
I was in the marquee on Saturday night at Vogue Williams and Joanne McNally, and I tell you what, the place is looking unbelievable.
Yeah,
so if people are making a double header, it'll be a bit of crack.
Great day out.
Let's round it off then on the last game of the weekend, Armagh Westmeath, because I do think, Eamon, if you feel like Louth were the losers of the weekend, I think Westmeath might feel that way as well. Like, they played absolutely brilliantly and still got nothing out of that game against an Armagh team who might feel themselves they were happy to get something out of it, because I don't know, that's an opportunity missed by a very, very good performing Westmeath team.
It was, and I have to say, as impressed as I was with Westmeath last year, I thought because of the league that they had this year that they would find that step up hard, but they were outstanding. They were really good. During the league, they were very reliant on John Heslin to get nearly most of their scores, whereas they had spread the scores the last day. Thought Ronan O'Toole, the way he played last year, he was just absolutely brilliant in terms of the way that he plays, the intelligence he plays with, the impact he has on the game. He was really good. Armagh, the critical goal from Turbot was a shot for a point, and in fairness, Andrew Murnan, he got a good hand in it, and Turbot gambled and got off it and finished well. But Armagh afterwards, like Kieran McGeeney, when he was interviewed afterwards, he used the word frustrated about 10 times. They were frustrated with themselves. They were frustrated with the referee. They were, you could even feel the frustration of the crowd, their home supporters that are always very, very positive. So Westmeath unlucky. Armagh will be happy to have the 2 points in the bag because that group is so tough. But they're going to need to react again now next weekend for Tyrone and Omagh, which is obviously a huge game for them now.
Yeah, look, it's a different scenario facing into it with a win though, Lee, isn't it? Because if they'd have drawn or even lost that game, trying to go to Omagh after that, I think Kieran McGeeney might be frustrated, but he also might be a bit relieved that they got the victory.
Oh, massively. I think that's a huge Ulster final hangover. Particularly in the first half, they looked lethargic, energy levels low, and probably same with Derry to a degree, although Monaghan were very good. I suppose you're on a bit provincial, but I suppose the two teams invested so much time in that Ulster final 2 weeks ago in terms of how dramatic it was, extra time, penalties, and to come down after that, and particularly in Armagh's case, when the game was there for them, I'm sure that was hard to pick themselves up. So they thought maybe this was the game to get themselves back up, but Westmeath had different ideas. And listen, they'll be bitterly disappointed at that result of the weekend. Not even to get a draw would have been fantastic for Westmeath. Like as Eamon alluded to, like I watched the game. I thought Ronan Neal was fantastic. Sam Duncan, John Heslin, Ray Ellen, brilliant in midfield. So, and I was kind of questioning where Westmeath were this year as well. I thought maybe after last year they seemed to go backwards a little bit, and we're very happy just to get through the league and just kind of playing to Sam Maguire. But that performance the weekend suggests that they're ready to move up a new level. But for Armagh, still question marks. They're going to have to beat a big team at some stage, and that's the question I always pose this year: is that when the game was there against Derry in the middle bottom, when they were 2 points up even in extra time, second half, how could they manage the game? And the fact that they haven't beaten an elite team yet, I think that's the question mark that hangs over them. And I think the Tyrone game is going to pose big questions for them in terms of performance and where their heads are at. So, I don't think they can play as bad last night. But the one thing I'll say about Armagh is they got the result. The performance, the result's the biggest thing for them, and it puts them in a brilliant position to actually top the group if they get a big performance, a big result against Tyrone in 2 weeks. I hope it's not a repeat of what we see in the league a couple of years ago. I hope we have 15 on the pitch by the end of it, each side. But I do expect fireworks. It's going to be a cracking game, and it'll definitely set up the group stage perfectly after that game of the weekend.
And I think, Jackie, and I think one thing as well, and I'd be interested in everybody's view, like every team seems to be flawed. I mean, there's no team that has not suffered some sort of landmark or marquee defeat, whether it was Galway losing the league final, whether it was Mayo being knocked out by Roscommon, whether it was Kerry losing last week or losing a couple of weeks ago, whether it was Dublin, obviously drawn at the weekend after a stuttery enough Leinster campaign. You know, we've seen Derry obviously draw again so like every team seems to have a little flaw and there's chinks in the armor. And I think what we're seeing now for the next couple of weeks, in fairness to this new format, we are seeing the best teams all playing against each other. The results have been competitive, and it is making for it will make for a really interesting knockout phase, I'd imagine. And again, like, we should really start to see some really good quality football in arguably the most open All-Ireland football championship we've had, probably going back maybe 13, 14 years. So I think it's like, from here now, it's something to get really excited about.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're dead right, actually, about them all being flawed. I guess the big question, Rory, is who's the least flawed?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, it's open. Like any 16 teams will fancy their chances because every team is flawed. The one thing I've learned is that the gap, say, take the Mayo, for example, the break seems to really re-energize them, where you take those to find 2 weeks ago, they look tired and injured levels were low. So I think the break for teams has probably helped in some cases. Where if you're coming back after a really tough game 2 weeks ago, I think that's probably the flawed part, because again, we all know how competitive Ulster is, and the come down is always hard. So listen, there's no team perfect. As I suppose, as you said, alluded to, guys, it's after this weekend we'll get a bigger picture of where the top teams are and where they're going to progress and how they're going to handle the pressure. And I think it sets it up brilliantly. And the one thing that we were all worried about, it was the dead rubbers, the hammerings. We haven't had that yet. And it's been brilliant to see. We've had competitive games, winning margins. The biggest winning margin for any game has been 5 so far. So we've had really competitive games. Feck all goals, albeit, but that could change after the weekend. So hopefully that'll entice teams to be a bit more attacking. But again, we're going to get some really, really good games this weekend.
Yeah, I think we are. And to be fair, Eamon, on your point, where, you know, even if after this weekend we get a sense of it, the winning of these groups is actually crucial on the rest that Lee is talking about. So this is where we're going to see who really wants to go for it, who wants to win these groups. This weekend is probably going to tell everything in that.
It is absolutely. And that's you do get the weekend off, and the team that's coming in then has played 3 weekends. It will be playing their third weekend in the trot, which on top of the previous group games is a lot in a short period of time. The panel has been tested and everything else. But I think, look, when we get to the end game eventually in the 30th of July, we look back and some team will hit their stride in the next week or two, and they'll just really go and they'll be unstoppable, similar to the way Tyrone did it in 2 years ago, where they just hit their stride at the right time and they drove at it. Whereas, you know, as we said, they're all flawed. But for me, so far, the team of the big guns that can win it, that have been most consistent, have been Mayo in terms of their performance. Yeah, absolutely.
Lee didn't even flinch there.
He's heaping the pressure on you there, Lee.
Yeah.
No, I'm not heaping any pressure on there. I think that Derry had the major hiccup against Dublin in the league final, and other than that, they've been very consistent throughout the year as well in terms of performance and results. I think that Mayo, you know, obviously the kind of championship game, which has suited them, but there's no pressure, just facts.
Yeah. No, the thing I learned, I suppose, Kevin is not afraid to rotate, is in terms of we've seen a lot of young guys start against Kerry, and you're probably questioning what way Mayo are going for that game. But he trusted those young guys. And then when you see the likes of Paddy Durkin, Stevie Cohen, Tommy Conroy, mainstay guys come off the bench and add to what they're already doing well, I do somewhat agree with him, and that sets them up really nicely in terms of how they're approaching the championship. And in terms of I wouldn't have Galway too far away either, Eamon. Albeit I know we can't read too much in Tyrone game, but I still felt they were just had way too much for Tyrone. Even when the game was kind of 1 point game, they look comfortable, and that's a sign of a team that's happy to do the nuts and bolts, but they're also happy to do the kind of attractive football as well. So he's building a really deep squad of guys that are trusting their game plan, trusting who they're playing against, and they're a team that I'd be fearful of coming down the stretch, because they have that experience of last year as well.
You're just trying to throw us off the scent of Mayo for Sam, aren't you?
Absolutely. The semi-finals come around, Jackie. I have the boots polished, the white boots.
Absolutely. Oh, stop. Look, lads, we'll leave it there. Thoroughly looking forward to another weekend. Lee, Eamon, thanks a million for being with us, and enjoy the matches at the weekend.
Thanks, guys.
There's the whistle.